Welcome back to another wonderful day of Fusion 360. This is going to be lesson number 5, and we're going to continue on with our previous lesson in sketching because we're going to be using things like parameters today. So I'm going to teach you some really fundamental things. I've talked about it before, but I want to really reiterate this and drive it home because trust me, using parameters will make your future work and the fixing of those objects as you work through them, because you have to backtrack, go forward, backtrack, go forward. It'll make your life a lot easier, especially when you use it in a obvious way for yourself. And this is going to be dependent on you. Now, what we're going to be doing is continuing on with this design, which is the bolt. If I drag this in, we're basically remaking. I can't drag it in for some reason. Insert into current design. Doesn't let me. Oh, there it is. Okay, just slow. So the bolt here, let me move it, is being redesigned, but in the sketching environment versus the 3D environment, which is the first few videos in this current series. And that's basically what we're doing, but we're doing it in a different way so that we learn new skills and new tricks and tips and all that fun stuff. So if you've been following along, you should have the exact same thing you have here. Make sure your sketch is turned on. You can see exactly the bottom, which is our sketch going around. Now, one thing is, coming back into your file after you close Fusion, I can't Command Z and go backwards beyond and fix the sketches like this. You have to actually fix it by hand, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get right into it by going back in our history. So back here I have the sketch, we have the extrude, which is the sketch being pulled out in a 3D space, but we're going to change the sketch and change it to use some parameters. But what I'm going to do is go down to my history here. You can go up here as well. It's the exact same thing. Right click and go edit sketch. Up here, right click, edit sketch. It's the exact same thing. And then it goes back into our sketch environment to exactly where we left off before we finished that sketch. So you can edit it at any time and it will adjust itself for all the future instances that it's used in within Fusion. Now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be making these numbers, these sizes, sort of permanent / adjustable, and that's going to be depending on our parameters. Now in the sketch environment, you have parameters under your modify list. If you go back, let me see if it should be under modify as well. Yeah, it's the same place. Sometimes I lose my track in my head of what's going on here. But in parameters, you will have this. Now, parameters, again, as I mentioned in the previous video, they don't overlap between different documents, which means if you make multiple files to create the same thing or to use together, any parameter you're making here, here, or here will be separated. Now, there are universal parameters, which is a future video, but there's still sort of a not so flushed out thing with Fusion. I wish that they could become universal by default, but who knows? Maybe the future will bring some early Christmas presents with that. So when you make parameters, what you're doing is you're creating basically a list of numbers, a list of units, and those units are named exactly what you would like to name them. And it's really important to make sure that you have the same naming conventions going forward. So whatever you choose to use as a name structure, it's good to pick something that you can memorize pretty easily. Myself, I use sort of a coding name structure because I have a little bit of a background with coding and programming as well. And it helps me really visualize what I need, because if I think of something and I think of how it works with code, then I can really see that exact parameter come out right away, just the way that it's designed. So what happens is we are going to use no spaces at all. And let's go through and see what we need. We need this radius. So this is the radius there, which is the same over there. We need this diameter, which is for our inside. So it's half of the radius. But we could really actually use the same number because it's just doubled, right? The radius is doubled as that diameter. And we have this distance here. Let me actually pull that down so it's closer. This distance here of 0.5. And we also have the circle diameter, which is, where are you? There we go. The diameter or radius. We'll just go with the radius of 3 millimeters. So those are our parameters that we need to set up. So here we go. Let's first set up our notch distance or notch width of 0.5. So if we call it a notch, I'm going to say notch underscore, because there's no spaces in my parameters here, notch width. And then for the expression, that is the size, the exact size, you can say 0.5 or 0.5, and we're set. Next, add a new parameter. We're going to add the radius, so notch underscore radius. I'm still calling it a notch because it's attached to that notch. This is my parameter, my naming convention. You can use other things if you want. And this will be double that. And then we have the width, which again, just to check. Where is it? Close. Need the exact, there we go. Diameter, which is 6, and radius is 3. So we have to go back, go to parameters, go. This is the head, because it's the head of the bolt. Head, radius, and that's going to be 3. Okay. Now one more thing which we really didn't create here is the distance between the head, the main head, and the actual notch. Let's see what that is. Measure that here, and 0.25. So let's create a parameter for that as well, and you'll see how that can be adjusted later. So we have notch underscore, we have width, so we're going to go height, 0.25. We're set. Now here's where we're going to be using parameters. These are already set up. They are ready to go, but we really want to now assign these to the parameter itself. And we're going to have to redo all of these. So I might just pause the video and fix that. But what we'll do is just on these sizes, if you don't have them, one quick sort of backtrack here is to get sketch dimensions. You can actually create a sketch dimension. So let's say I want to go from this edge to this edge. So find either the edge or a point. I'll do the edge. I can't do the edge. I'll do the point because the edge defaults to that. Escape out. So point to point. And you can make that if it's not there already. Now don't worry about putting a parameter in just yet, because this is what we're doing right now together. So we have notch, and I just start typing letters and these things come up. We want the width, enter. Now the FX stands for the parameters. That's what that is. If you see FX, that means this is already a set parameter. It doesn't show you the name of it. It wants to show you the actual width. And this, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing this is to do with exporting drawings. You want it to look like how you'd export it if you were to draw it and give it to an engineer or a machinist. So now we have notch radius, can't spell, notch radius, enter, and the FX pops up. Again, notch radius, enter. Now here's where we have a little bit of fun here. This one, the absolute symbol, but we want notch radius, and now we're going to use a little bit of hit. Does it go? Do it? No. Notch radius, and then we're going to hit the Shift and 8. My key command is not showing up right now. Times 2. So if you do any programming, or most things on the computer now, there's no multiplication button. If you push X, it doesn't mean anything, it's just a letter. So what you do is above 8, there's a little star. You go hold Shift and you push 8 on your keyboard. And that is the multiplication symbol. I'm sure you know this already, but I just, because this is an educational video, want to make sure we really get this going. And because this is the notch radius times 2, because it's twice the size of 0.2 instead of 0.1, I'm going to multiply it by 2. And now I have FX 0.2. So if I change the notch radius, this will change, and this will multiply it and change by 2. And the last thing here is I'm going to make a new parameter. So I have here down to here. Hit enter. We're going to type in notch height. There it is. And we're set. Okay. Hit escape a bunch of times. Now here is where we can see about selecting these, and I want to deselect this. So what I did is I'm going to, let's say I want to get rid of all of these extra ones and redo them. If you watch the last video, you'll see how we did that. I'm going to select a whole bunch. And then I'm going to hold shift and click back on the circle, the main head, and the diameter of that circle, the outside edge, the circumference. And then just hit delete. And they delete. Because you want to get rid of all these. So let me just do this again way over here. This is actually pretty fast. Delete. It says deleting is causing errors. Don't worry about that. It will adjust itself because we haven't gone too far into our history. Delete. Okay. Now we're set. Now if I select these and I go back like the last video to our circular pattern, I forget the number we used. Oh, no, I don't want that. The center point is our circle. I think it was, why are my windows so small all of a sudden? 25? No, 20? Sure, 20 is fine. This is not being exact, this is just for education. So I'm repeating this 20 times. This is in the previous video, lesson number 4. So if you want more of an explanation, go back and watch that. And that's set. So because these are copies of this, if I change this one or any of these parameters, it will change. So let's try that. Let's go to modify our parameters. And I'm going to pull it down a bit and pull this up because I want you to see this as it changes. And actually, let's go to our, someone told me that they prefer this. So why not? Tranquility Blue. Okay, parameters. Now let's see what happens when we change the notch width. If I change this to not by much, 0.6, watch. Enter, and it has to think for a second. There's a spinning wheel of death. I wonder if I'm gonna crash Fusion doing this. Gotta adjust 100 things. Maybe it was the wrong thing to change because it relies on a whole bunch of previous references. Yeah, my computer is thinking way too much. I'm gonna, oh, there it is. Perfect. So what happened was, because it's not referenced and centered with a center reference, it went off to the left. And that's, you know what, that's actually fine because it's a circle, it's even anyways. If this was a square, then it would not be even. But that is what just happened. So you can see that these parameters, they're basically rules for any future reference that changes with it. And when you change a parameter, anything that uses that parameter will adjust. And that is the key for this video. So the lesson today is, honestly, use parameters. Use them, use them, use them, and use them. Even if you're unsure what the parameter might be, you can put a placeholder, or you can come back later like we did right now. We came back and we added new parameters. Whatever the case is, whatever your workflow is, use parameters. Let's go back to point 5 and let this think for another minute, I'm guessing. Yeah, spinning wheel of death. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to adjust this radius here. And just to show you, you can adjust more later on your own. The radius we're going to put, let's say 0.15, and it'll be a much larger radius. It might not work depending, because this diameter might overlap the radius if it, let's say when I adjust it, comes down a lot further because it's a larger radius. But let's try. I'm just trying to talk over top of the waiting period. Notch radius 0.1. Let's try 0.12. Enter. Spinning wheel of death. It's telling me it can't do it. That was my guess. That's what I was talking about earlier. So I'm guessing when it enlarges this and this diameter, it's just too much and it kind of overlaps each other, which is fine. I'm going to put it back to 0.1, but we get the point for the video. Let me go Command Z just to go back. These are your references for tangents, which is right there. And this is how we built it last time. We might want to build it differently. But in the next video, we're going to talk about these in particular and a few of the modifies, especially our offsets, which I use really often on our breaks as well. So that's this, and let's finish this sketch. Let's pull it forward. We have this, get rid of the sketch, and now we're going to go to the next step of making our Allen key insert cut into the head of this. We're going to create a brand new sketch, and it is the second part of the video where we get to choose where we want to put a sketch. Now, because it's a 3D object, I can actually select on any flat surface. This one is flat. The inside is not flat because it's following the curve of the head. So if it's not being selected, it's because it's not flat. But I want to draw a sketch on here. You can see that it's not even the same plane anymore. We used to have a sketch down below here. You can draw a sketch anywhere that's flat. And this is where the sketching environment and the 3D environment really intersect. Let me line it up with the top, go flat on, straight on, and we are going to do something really simple. And last video I mentioned how if you lock it into the origin, it's going to get stuck. So we want to do a circumscribe. We've got two. Inscribe goes to the points of your polygon, or circumscribe goes to the flat edge, or one of the, this is a pentagon, so one of the flat edges. If I started on the origin, that this sketch will be locked, which could probably cause problems down the road. And this is sort of a weird thing that Fusion kind of does sometimes, which is fine. It's just the way it works. So I'm going to put it just slightly off the origin and then drag it over and move it over when I finish with this. So let's say I want 1.5. No, I think this is a 3 millimeter, so I think it's 1.75. I think this is just from memory. Let's just go with that, 1.75. Now I'm going to finish the sketch because all it is a straight edge here. Let me select the whole thing, double click. There's a new thing. So we're going to double click our object, or we can just highlight that. But let's double click, hit M, and I'm going to move it over until it is in the origin. There it is. Turn the origin back off, hit OK. And now my new drawing is in the center, and I can still move it for whatever future reference I need. Next thing is to extrude. But before I do that, I'm going to jump ahead and edit this sketch and add a little bit of a fillet on my sketch. And here's where I can skip to the next video and kind of cheat a bit. Now here you're just pointing to the corner, click, but I'm going to add multiple corners at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry. What am I doing here? I'm thinking in a different tool. Okay. Let's make a parameter first for Allen fillet. We should have made a parameter for the Allen size. 0.1, very, very small. Fillet. Allen fillet. 0.1, that's good. We can always change it later. Allen, enter. Allen, enter. Allen, enter. Because there's only one Allen parameter, I don't need to be picky about this. I can just push enter really fast. And we are set with our fillet. So now if I extrude, hit E, click my sketch, pull it down. And this is where I'm going to go very, very close to the bottom. So I'm going to go to the bottom here, and this is another extrude trick. Click the bottom, it goes all the way down to whatever layer you click, whatever base you click, and it's -3. So I'm going to go -2. No, -2, not 2. My minus button is not working properly. There we go. -2 and cut. I'm good. Set. And now I have some fillets there, and I'm all set. You can't do this in the sketch. You have to do this after. This is just the way 3D stuff works here. But let's go Allen fillet as well for that. And I don't like how large that fillet is. I'm going to divide that. So /2 or divide by 3 maybe. Divide by 3. There we go. Fillet. Allen fillet. Enter. Divide by 3. And now I have some actual nice fillets. Go back to our parameters. Allen fillet, let's say I made that 1.5. Hit enter, it changes. That is our lesson for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope this really solidifies some of the important things with not only designing, workflow in designing and using parameters, but also getting the handle of sketching and including sketches with your 3D objects, because they all work together, and this is the wonderful thing about Fusion 360. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.